Hello, my name is Kristen, and today we'll be presenting to you some useful information that might help you better understand what your loved one is going through. I will also propose some strategies you might be able to use in order to ease communicative interactions in day-to-day activities. Your loved one has been diagnosed with right hemisphere syndrome. What exactly does this mean? Right hemisphere syndrome, or RHS, is the term we use to describe the difficulties people can have after sustaining some type of damage to the right side of the brain. Damage to the right side of the brain can be caused by a number of things. The main causes are stroke, tumor, infection, or a traumatic brain injury, also known as TBI. A TBI is just a fancy term for saying that the brain was damaged due to a forceful event from the outside of the skull. To give you a little bit of background information, I will give you a quick overview of the brain. The picture on the slide here is what we would normally think of when we hear the word brain, except in this picture, the brain is split in half. The two halves of the brain are what we call the left and right hemispheres. The left side of the brain is typically the half that is mostly responsible for language. This means the left side of the brain is used to understand and use language, as well as remember messages that the person had heard someone say or saw written down. The left side of the brain is also responsible for other functions not as closely related to communication, such as mathematics, logic, and it controls the right side of the body. This is something that we would normally think is weird. The right side of the brain is quite different from the left side. The right side of the brain helps us judge where certain things are in space. For example, this perception is what allows us to say, "The book is on the table," or lift our hands and move it towards the table to actually pick up the book. In order to do things like this, our bodies must be aware of where our body parts are in space. The right side of the brain also puts together smaller pieces of information in order to come to a bigger picture conclusion about something. For example, if someone sees wheels, doors, a trunk, and a hood, they use their right brain to put these smaller parts together to notice that they are likely looking at a car. Similar to the left side, the right side also has functions that aren't as closely tied to communication, such as intuition, creativity, imagination, and of course, it's responsible for controlling the left side of the body. Now that you've had a small overview of how the brain works, we will look specifically at the right hemisphere, or right side, its importance in communication, and what we can expect to see from your loved one now that he has experienced damage to his right hemisphere. The right half of the brain also has some functions that are important to communication. It interprets non-linguistic and emotional elements. These terms can be a little bit tedious, so I will break them down for you. Non-linguistic aspects of communication are things like facial expression, gesture, and body language. They are the parts of communication that aren't heard but seen. Emotional elements are things like pitch, tone, and stress. These are the different sounds we put in our voice when our mood changes. For example, if someone is talking to you with a very low tone and stress, they might be mad. Let's say I come across my friend one day and I say, "Good morning, how are you?" And she says, "I'm fine." Her tone was deep and she didn't vary her stress at all. Something is likely wrong. On the other hand, you might say the same thing to another friend and she responds with, "Hello, I'm great, how are you?" You immediately think she must have had her lucky charms records because she's in a really, really good mood. This next slide goes over the signs and symptoms. These are areas in which you might see your loved one's behavior change, if you haven't seen changes in these areas already. The first area is attention. He might have a more difficult time concentrating or focusing on what he sees or hears. The next area is perception. One of the most common difficulties in this area is a problem with the person's perception and processing of anything in his left visual field. We call this left-sided neglect. I'll give you a little example to try really quickly. Close your left eye, put your left hand flat with your fingers tight together pointing upward, and keeping your fingers and thumb tight, line up your left thumb on the midline of your nose. This is similar to having no left visual field. People who experience this problem might not be able to read words on the left side of a page, or they might not eat the food on the left side of their plate. The next area the person might have a problem with is reasoning and problem solving. Simple tasks, such as noticing there is no milk left and knowing that the person needs to go to the grocery store to get more milk, might be difficult for them. When people have problems with memory, they might have difficulty recalling information they have previously learned or have difficulty learning new information. In terms of social communication difficulties, something we also call pragmatics, a person might not understand a metaphor or sarcastic language. He or she might not pick up on those non-linguistic cues we talked about before, such as facial expressions. So if someone says something and then rolls their eyes, the person might think they're actually serious when they're not. Organization problems might mean the person has difficulties arranging information to tell a story or give someone else directions. If an individual has problems with insight, he might not recognize when a problem occurs and the impact this problem has on the events of the day. For example, if there is an announcement on the radio about a car accident downtown and the person is headed there to drop something off in the afternoon, he would understand that this is a problem and that he would have to take a different route to get there. One last problem area is orientation. People with problems in this area tend to have trouble recalling a date, time, or place. They may also be confused in terms of the self as well, such as they might not remember specific personal information like a birthday or age. Now that you know what types of difficulties to expect and how this might impact your loved one's daily activities, I will give you a list of things you can do in order to help you communicate better with him in day-to-day interactions. Please keep in mind this is a short list of some of the most helpful strategies. When talking to your loved one, it can be very helpful to get his attention before speaking to him. Maybe introduce some background information to give him context and talk slowly when speaking so he has time to process what is being said. Asking questions and giving your loved one reminders can help keep him on topic during a conversation. If you can avoid sarcasm when you speak to your loved one, this can be really helpful with him in understanding the communication. Keeping his daily routines consistent can help with problems in memory, reasoning and problem solving, and pragmatics. Limiting the number of distractions when communicating with your loved one will help him stay focused on the conversation. And finally, using visual reminders such as calendars and clocks can also help remind your loved one of important information, such as appointments. As mentioned, the list on the previous slide was a general summary of communication techniques for individuals with right hemisphere syndrome. If you want or need more information, there are many resources out there available to you. I have listed 4 really helpful ones here. That's all for today's presentation. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to let me know. Thank you very much and have a great day.